My name is Michael Carter. I'm 38 years old, and until not long ago, I believed I had control over my life. I was wrong. It was just another Tuesday in Boston, but the rain wouldn't let me forget that something was out of place. The drops hit the window with the insistence of someone who wanted to come in, and the smell of roasted chicken spread through the dining room, trying to sustain the illusion of normalcy. The yellow light above the table cast shadows across Emma's face. My Emma. Or at least, the woman I believed was still mine. Is it good? I asked, forcing a smile, as if the question were only about the food. HM? Oh yes, delicious, she replied without looking up. Her phone vibrated. A fleeting sparkle, too quick to be innocent, crossed her eyes before the mask slipped back into place. It was a smile, yes, but empty, cracked at the edges. In that moment, I felt something break inside me. Not the sound of glass shattering or wood splitting. It was silent, but devastating. Suspicion had been born.
To our channel.
And I knew, once doubt enters a home, it doesn't knock. It settles in. It devours. The following weeks felt like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Nothing crumbled all at once, but every detail was another crack in the walls of what I thought was solid. The good morning kiss turned into a rushed brush of lips, so cold it felt mechanical. The late-night talks that once lulled us to sleep were replaced by the bothersome glow of her phone screen. Always face down when I walked into the room. Always. I noticed, of course. And the more I noticed, the further she drifted away. One of those nights, Emma came home late. Much later than usual. She wore a sweet, heavy perfume, not hers, not familiar, and it didn't match the excuse of a business meeting. I lay beside her, eyes shut, body stiff, pretending to sleep. The room was cloaked in shadows, except for the bluish glow escaping from her phone. I heard the soft click of the unlocked screen. Then came the blow. A whisper. Jake. I don't know if he's going to fall for this. My heart stopped. Her breath trembled, but mine disappeared altogether. My blood froze, as if drained from my veins. Jake. A simple, common name, yet to me it sounded like a death sentence. Who the hell was Jake? I stayed still, every muscle at war with the instinct to rise up and demand answers. But no. I remained there, trapped, listening to the silence that followed, pretending to be a ghost beside her. That night, I didn't sleep a second. I watched the sun rise with a metallic taste of betrayal on my tongue, and the cruel certainty that my life would never be the same. At the office, I was a ghost in front of a screen. The clatter of the keyboard, the ringing of phones, voices coming and going. Everything sounded distant, blurred. Nothing made sense. The only thing haunting my mind was Emma. The name whispered in the dark. Jake. And those cryptic conversations I had overheard in passing. Money. Always about money. The thought pierced me like a blade. What if it wasn't just betrayal? What if she wanted more than my love? What if she wanted everything? The following Saturday, the cold punished Boston. I went to my mother's house. Margaret. The smell of fresh coffee wrapped around me as soon as I stepped into the kitchen, but even that familiar aroma couldn't warm me. I was in ruins. I sat at the table, staring for a few seconds at the smoke rising from my cup, searching for strength to speak. Finally, the words spilled out. Mom, I think Emma is plotting something. I need to protect myself. She froze, dropped the sugar spoon onto the saucer with a dry clink that echoed louder than it should have. She gripped my hand tightly, her eyes watering, as if afraid of the answer I already carried. Michael, are you sure? I took a deep breath, swallowing the bitter taste of doubt. No, I'm not sure of anything. But I know if I do nothing, I might lose everything. She stayed silent, just squeezing my hand, as if holding on to someone teetering on the edge of a cliff. That afternoon, without wasting time, I made my move. The first piece in my private chess match. I planned the transfers, the house, the investments, the savings. One by one, all assets would leave my name and move to hers. It sounded insane, I know. But on that chessboard, sometimes you have to sacrifice a piece to win the game. And my game against Emma was only just beginning. What had been a tormented thought turned into action. If Emma was plotting against me, I had to stay one step ahead. And paradoxically, The best way to protect myself was to place everything in her hands. It sounds crazy, I know. But in chess, sometimes you give up a piece only to capture the king. I started with the house. I called my lawyer, Mitchell, a meticulous man who spoke as if every word cost him money. Mitchell, I need you to draft a property transfer. The house goes under my mother's name. On the other end, silence. I could almost hear his brow furrow. Michael, are you sure? That's not common. I'm sure. Make it look like a gift. Something natural. That afternoon, I went to the registry office. Cold lights reflected off worn marble, and the pen felt like it weighed a ton as I signed the papers. Every stroke of my name was a stab at my own trust. The deed to the house was now officially under Margaret's name. Next came the investments. I logged into my brokerage account. The clock was striking 6 when I began moving assets. Sold off the most liquid stocks, consolidated funds, and transferred everything to Margaret's account. When I hit confirm, the screen flashed. Transfer in progress. Felt like a sentence. Lastly, my savings. I walked into the bank with the calm of a man carrying a corpse in the trunk. I asked the manager to transfer the entire balance of my savings account into my mother's personal account. He looked surprised but didn't dare question me. He typed, double-checked, and in seconds, years of effort vanished from my account and reappeared in hers. I walked out feeling the weight of emptiness. I no longer owned anything. The house, the investments, the emergency fund, everything had changed hands. And yet, there was a strange satisfaction in each move. I had just played the first move in my private chess match. And if Emma thought she could destroy me, she had no idea I was already dismantling the board beneath her feet. One night, I decided it was time to provoke the game. If Emma had hidden cards, I wanted to see them, even if only through the crack of a gesture, a glance, a stumble in her voice. The living room was wrapped in a cozy penumbra, too comfortable for the storm raging between us. The TV was on with some random show, but the images slid by like shadows. Nobody was paying attention. On the coffee table, 2 glasses of wine reflected the soft light of the lamp. She leaned back on the sofa, elegant as always, but there was something about her calm that felt rehearsed. I took a deep breath, swirled the wine in my glass, and fired the question like throwing a knife into the dark. Emma, have you ever thought, if one day we separated, what would happen with all of this here? The house, the accounts? For a second, the world froze. I saw her shoulders stiffen. It was a tiny detail, almost imperceptible, but to me it screamed like an alarm. The smile that followed looked hastily drawn, pasted on her face like a mask that didn't quite fit. Are you thinking of leaving me, Michael? Her tone was soft, but it hid blades. I faked a light laugh, as if my question had been only a silly musing. No, of course not. Just curiosity. She lifted her glass, took a long, almost desperate sip, and turned her eyes to the TV, as if there were an escape there. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded too firm to be natural. I think it would only be fair to split everything in half. After all, everything we have is ours, isn't it? I smiled outwardly, but inside I shattered. Split everything in half. She had already thought about it. She had already pictured the scenario. She had rehearsed every step. At that moment, I needed no more proof. The betrayal wasn't just in the heart. It was in the calculations. Emma wasn't only considering leaving me, she was already preparing to take half of my life with her. And I knew, with cruel clarity, the game was only beginning, and I couldn't afford a single wrong move. 2 weeks later, the scene unfolded exactly as I feared, and at the same time, exactly as I had predicted. Emma walked into the living room with an air far too calculated to be spontaneous. The flawless dress, the hair done as if for a business meeting, and that rehearsed expression, probably repeated in the mirror several times before facing the audience that was me. She sat on the sofa across from mine, crossed her legs slowly, and after a deep breath, delivered, "Michael, we need to talk." At that instant, my heart already knew the sentence. It wasn't about us. It wasn't about love. It was about what came after the end. She began with pretty words, carefully assembled phrases, sprinkled with strategic pauses, irreconcilable differences. We're not the same anymore. The text sounded ready, like a speech someone writes when trying to convince a jury. But then came the blow, no frills, cold as a blade against the skin. I think the best thing is to resolve everything peacefully. But I need my share. Half of everything we've built. For a second, time froze. The silence between us wasn't silence. It was the roar of betrayal finally showing its face. I stared into her eyes, searching for a crack, any remnant of the woman who once promised me forever. I found nothing but calculation. And then, I simply nodded. No words. No protest. Inside, the pain devoured me like acid. But along with it, strangely, came another feeling, triumph. Because while she thought she was hammering the last nail into my coffin, I had already prepared the board for checkmate. She didn't know. She had no idea. And it was in that silence, in that restrained nod, that I realized. Sometimes the loudest victory cry is saying nothing at all. She had no idea she had already lost. The day of mediation arrived like the final act of a play whose ending only I knew. The air in the room was heavy, smelling of old paper, ink, and raw nerves. I sat beside Richard Hale, my lawyer. A man of calm speech but eyes sharp as a hidden blade. Emma sat across, impeccable. Upright posture, discreet smile, confidence stamped on her face, as if she were already savoring victory before the verdict. Her lawyer opened his folder theatrically, ready to start demanding her share. But Richard was faster. With the calm of someone about to topple a house of cards, he flipped through his documents, aligned the pages, looked directly at the man across from him, and delivered. Before we talk about division of assets, I need to clarify a fundamental issue. All of Mr. Carter's assets were legally transferred months before the divorce petition. The impact was immediate. Her lawyer's eyes widened, his confidence draining like ink washed away by rain. He flipped desperately through the papers before him, as if answers could leap out by miracle. Emma, Emma. The mask finally cracked. The blood drained from her face, and for the first time in a long time, I saw fear in her eyes. That's impossible, she murmured, almost to herself. Richard clasped his hands on the table and, with the serenity of someone who had already won, replied, "It's a fact." The silence that fell in that room was deafening. Her confidence collapsed in seconds, and I simply watched, impassive, as the castle she had built crumbled before everyone. But fate still had more in store for me. Days later, Daniel, a mutual friend, came to me. He was nervous, restless, like someone carrying dynamite in his pocket. "Michael, you need to see this." He set his phone in front of me. Messages. Conversations between Emma and Jake. I read every line as if they were stabs. They were cold, devoid of affection. Jake instructing her, empty the accounts first, secure advantages in negotiation, leave no room for contestation. There was no love there. Not even a heart's betrayal. Only greed. Conspiracy. And that's when I understood. Emma never wanted Jake. She never wanted to leave me. What she wanted was to destroy me. But this time, she wasn't the one who made the final move. I was. The messages spread like wildfire. At first discreetly, phone to phone, then openly among the friends who had once toasted in our dining room. With every share, Emma's image crumbled. The sweet, perfect woman everyone thought they knew was revealed through the cold words exchanged with Jake. The mask fell. And once it did, there was nothing left beneath but calculation and greed. Our friends began to drift away, one by one. Invitations vanished, eyes turned away. Even her own family, once fierce defenders, could no longer face her without seeing the truth etched into her skin. And Jake simply evaporated. Like a rat sensing the ship catch fire, fleeing through the sewers before sinking with it. No message. No goodbye. The accomplice turned into a ghost. The divorce was finalized without fanfare. When the judge read the ruling, the room was so silent you could hear the scratch of his pen. Emma walked out empty-handed. No house, no money, no victory. I kept everything. The house in Boston. The untouched savings. But above all, I reclaimed something she could never steal. My peace. She tried to contact me afterward. Long messages full of late apologies. Calls with sobs, artificial tears, desperate pleas to talk. I never answered. I never replied. With every vibration of my phone, I just looked at the screen and let it ring into the void. Because I was no longer the man who blindly believed in love. Today, sitting on the porch of my house, I feel the cool night breeze brush my face. Boston pulses before me, its lights reflecting on the horizon like a sea of promises. And I think of Emma. I think of all that was lost and all that was saved. I think of what I learned. Love, I realized, should not be blind. True love doesn't ask you to close your eyes to the truth. It sees. It understands. It forgives. What Emma offered me was not love. It was manipulation, carefully disguised as affection. And now, free from her, I can finally see. Months have passed since the last tie to Emma was cut. Life has slowly regained rhythm. Different, quieter, but incredibly more real. I heard Emma left Boston. Not in a grand way. Not with a triumphant farewell. She left like someone running from her own shadow. Some say they saw her alone in cheap bars. Others say she tried to start over in another city, carrying only the weight of her own shame. I don't know for sure. And, to be honest, I don't care. What matters is what stayed with me. The house, yes. Freedom, of course. But above all, the scar. It's here, invisible, but throbbing. A reminder that even the most trusting hearts can be deceived, but also that pain can turn into armor.
There are invisible scars that shape lives. Abuse steals your peace, but not your strength. Breaking the Cycle of Abuse is an interactive guide where you'll find powerful tools to identify the signs of abuse, understand the dynamics of violence, find shelter and legal and psychological support, plan a safe exit from a harmful environment, overcome trauma and rebuild your self-esteem. Start your journey of healing and transformation now for just $9.60.
One night, sitting on the same porch where I so often question my sanity, I realized something. Emma tried to destroy me using love as bait, trust as poison, and the future as blackmail. But without realizing it, she drowned in her own lie. And me? I rose from her ashes. Today, I'm in no hurry to love again. I'm not afraid of silence, nor of solitude. On the contrary, I've learned to respect them. The cold Boston breeze that touches my face no longer reminds me of emptiness. It reminds me of freedom. Emma was the storm. I, the survivor. And somehow, surviving was my greatest revenge. And in the end, the lesson I carry is simple, brutal, and inescapable. Protecting yourself is not selfishness. It is survival. Took me a long time to understand that. A long time to accept that love can be the most carefully stitched mask to hide a blade. But now I know. If there's one thing I wish for those listening to me, it's this: never ignore the signs. The small changes that seem harmless. The kiss that turns rushed. The heavy silence at the dinner table. The excuses spoken too quickly, too fragile to be true. Because sometimes, the one who swore to hold your hand until the end is already sharpening the knife to cut the rope and let you fall into the abyss. And when the game turns, because it always does, the betrayer pays the price. Sooner or later, they pay. I am living proof of that. And as I look back at all I lost, I realize I survived. And surviving, in the end, was my most relentless victory. It was my masterstroke.
Want more mysteries, twists, and exciting moments? So you can't miss this video. Click now and continue this journey of fascinating stories. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any news. Leave your comments and see you next time.